Takadosh Boker Or. Daf Yomi Masechet Shevuot Daf Amud Aleph 5A1. Says the Gemara, if you remember, we were speaking about, the entire question was Rabbi was also going to be Doresh, Ribui Miut, Veribui. So says the Gemara, you're right, but Be'alman, generally, Klale Ufrat Darish, right? Bederek Klal, he does the Klal Ufrat. Ve'hacha Ainu Ta'aman, here it's going to be the reasoning, Kedetanat Rabbi Shmuel. Just like Tanat Rabbi Shmuel, the Tanat Rabbi Shmuel, they taught, we just learned this in Parashat Shemini. Parashat Shemini, it said Tochlu b'mayim, right? It said Tochlu, Kol asher b'mayim, right? Kol asher, and right, he says, Kol asher lo sinapi v'kaskes b'mayim, b'yamim, u'v'nechalim otam tochelu. B'mayim shne pe'amim. Why does it say b'mayim twice? Right? So he comes and he says like this, the shne klalim of b'mayim is coming to teach you that you need simanet ta'ara in all the dagim and the shatzim, right? In all the different types. And they were written beside each other. So when it says bayamim u'vanechalim, it's going to be makbil that the dagim and the shatzim, right, have to be in mayim novim. Okay, so therefore, which means in water which are moving. So he says, and since the Torah is changing it, enze klal ufrat ela riba u'miut, which means since right now, right, it's not between them, but it's only samuch to them. So then what happens is that you don't do a klal ufrat, which is normally, meaning usually we do klal ufrat, right? The generalization specification. Here, the fact that it's not going to be like the norm, right? Because it said it twice, and it's not going to be in between them, it's a ribui umiut, right? That we are going to put the prat after them, between them. And therefore we're going to make it as a ribui miut veribui. Meaning usually you have a generalization, then you have a specification, then you have a generalization, which means that the prat is in between the two klals. Here, it's not in between. It's close to it, but not in between. Since it's close to it and not in between, so you don't do a klal ufrat, but rather you do a ribui and miut. Okay, and that's what we did. Ribui, right? Umeachad, also he says, also the pasuk is talking about pidyon ben, right? That means it's the exact same thing, which means that the two klalim are beside each other, and then the miut is afterwards. So therefore, you do ribui, miut, or ribui, and you do not do klal, ufrat, uklal. Everyone understood? Yeah, one more time. Birabbanan, and according to the rabbis, Amar Ravina says, Kedamni b'ma'arava, just like they say ma'arava, kol makom shata motze shte klalot asmuchot ze lezeh, hatel et haprat benehem, bedunam bechlal uprat. However, though, according to the rabbis, right, and this is why they argue on Rabbi and they do on Pidyon Ben the same thing, he says, you know what's the problem? What's the problem? Yeshcha klal, and then prat. Ma baya? That's a sandwich. תזרוק את הפרט between. תזרוק את הפרט באמצע. וברגע שאתה זורק את הפרט באמצע, תדון את זה כמו כלל ופרט וכלל. Right? You have כלל, פרט. So what do? Just put the prat in the middle, and once I put the prat in the middle, now judge it like כלל ופרט וכלל. What's the problem? That's the rabbis. So obviously the Rabbi doesn't hold to that, because the Rabbi holds that the second you have that order, right? So now you don't do any more klal ufrat uklal. You're only going to do ribui miut veribui. So hashta damarta Rabbi klal ufrat darish, right? So now that you come and you tell me that the Rabbi does hold of this concept of klal ufrats, bal korchin kasha shevuot. So now you have a question on shevuot. Why? Even though it's a stam mishnah that you're obligated to korban shevuah on a shevuah shavar, he says it's not that the Rabbi comes and he says, he does hold of a klal ufrat whenever you can. Ela, but rather by Shavuot nasi v'liva Akiva. But rather by Shavuot he holds like Rabbi Akiva that he does the ribui miut ribui. That the Torah says that on all the four different ways you're going to be chayav Shavuot bitui. But he doesn't hold right of it because he's going to be doresh klal ufrat uchlal. So now let's speak about it. Right? What exactly are we talking about? So gufa. Remember, gufa means that exactly what we just spoke about, we're going to try to understand. So it says gufa. Minayin she'eno chayav ela sheyesh ba yediya betchila v'yediya basof ele minatayim. So the Gemara is going to ask like this: how do we know that a person's only going to be chayav a korban ole v'yored if he ate kodesh or he went into the Beit HaMikdash when he's tameh? Only in a case where there's going to be yediya at the beginning of yediya basof and helem minatayim. So he says Samulaman, V'ne'elam, V'ne'elam. It says V'ne'elam, V'ne'elam twice. These are the words of Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi says, Eno tzarich, I don't need the extra V'ne'elam. Says, why? Hareu Omer V'ne'elam, right? When it says V'ne'elam, Miklal Sheyadat, it's mashma that I already knew about it at the beginning. Vehu Yada, when it says you knew about it, Harekan Shtei Idiot. So if so, Matal Mulmar V'ne'elam, why do I have V'ne'elam? Lechayev Al-Helem Tuma V'gam Al-Helem Mikdash. So meaning, why do I need twice V'ne'elams? One of them is to give you a Korban Olev Yored on Tumat HaMikdash V'Kodashav, and one of them is going to give you a Korban also on Helem Tum'ah and V'Helem Mikdash. Okay, so it's two different, meaning why is it written? Meaning the fact that it's already written Shtei Yediot, so right? So therefore, why do I need V'ne'elam? He says V'ne'elam, one of them is going to be B'chayev on Helem Tum'ah and also on Helem Mikdash, on two different things, right? Meaning you forgot about the Tum'ah and you forgot about the Mikdash or the Kodesh. Okay? So he says like this. Amar more comes and he says V'ne'elam Miklal Sheyada. Yeah? So he says like this, right? When it says V'ne'elam, it's mashma, right? Sheyada, that he didn't know at the beginning that it was Tameh. My mashma. What does that mean? So Amar Rava says, Midelo Kativ, from the fact that it's not written Vehi Aluma Mimenu. Right? Vehi Aluma Mimenu is mashma, right, of Helem. Because the Ne'elam is a Lashon Kilu Nishkach, right, with the noon at the beginning. Nishkach, right? It was forgotten about. So Ne'elam. So it's mashma, if so, that at the beginning it was known, and then afterwards it was Nishkach Mimenu. That's why it says Ne'elam. It's not, it's the way that it's done, meaning like the way that the wording is, when you say the word V'ne'elam, it means Yadata et Zekvar, you knew about it, and then it was Nishkach Mimcha, right? It becomes hidden from you, concealed from you. So Elmaleh Abaye comes and he says, 1 second, according to your reasoning, Ela Me'ata, let's try to look at the case of the Sotah. Kabe Sotah, it's written, V'shachav ish et ota shikvat zera, right? V'ne'elam me'inei isha. She concealed herself from her husband. Yeah? So he says like this, Miklal, Tave Yoda Meikara. So he says, now if you're going to tell me now V'ne'elam, it means that the husband knew about it, and then he forgot. Meaning, you just put me on anachai. You know what anachai is? It's like an assumption that whenever you use the terminology v'ne'elam, ata yadata ze b'atchala ve'ashachachta mizeh. Yeah, you knew about it at the beginning and you forgot. So he says, according to that, 1 second, when it says v'ne'elam minei isha, what does that mean? Kilu, the husband knew what she was doing at the beginning, and then she went and she concealed herself. So he says, yahava yada, if he knew about it, right? So therefore, mi bat kalamaya, it doesn't check. If the husband already knew, right, what's going on, and then he has relations with her, what happens? Does the waters check her? No. You're not allowed to. So therefore, what's the case? Tanya, we learned in a Braita, only if he's going to be clean from sin, which means that he didn't have relations with his wife afterwards, then the water is going to check the wife. But if he's not clean from sin, so then the water is not going to check his wife. So that's going to be question number 1. Question number 2, by the Torah it's written, so right, so which means that basically that the Torah is going to be so deep that it's going to be ne'elma. It's going to be hidden, right? From the eyes of every single living person. And me'ofa shamayim. Ofa shamayim here, what are ofa shamayim? The malachim. The malachim, they come and they fly in the shamayim. So the malachim. So he says nistera. So it's mashma that he says what? It's mashma that they knew the Torah and then you forgot it? Meaning every single person, he knew the entire Torah and then he forgets it. The aktiv, it's written, lo yadai no sherka. A person can never know the entire Torah. So how can you tell me that when it says v'ne'elam, it means that you knew it and then you forgot about it? How does that work? Right? It does not work. So he comes and he says, Ela amar Abaye, but rather Abaye says, Kasava Rebbe yediat bet rabo shema yediyah. He says, Rebbe hold, right, that when you learn in the house, right, in the academy of your rabbi, right, that if you're going to be nogea betumat sheretz, you're going to be tameh, and also Kodesh Mikdash, that in itself is considered the idea at the beginning. Which means, just like even though at that moment you didn't pay attention to the Tumah, the fact that you already learned about the Tumah, that means that you knew about it. even though later on you forgot about it. So that's called yidiyah. And then it's called ne'elam. So says the Gemara, Amaleh Rav Papa Labaye, says Rav Papa Tabaye, Ela, it says Ziktani, Emba yidiyah betchila v'yesh yidiyah b'sof. You don't have yidiyah at the beginning, you do at the end. Nika delel yidiyah betrabo. What means he just didn't go to yeshiva? So he says, Amaleh in yes, mishkach ala betinok shenishba lemen anochli tinok shenishba. Tinok shenishba. He never learned. So since he never learned because he was captured when he was young amongst the goyim, so therefore you don't have a yidiyah at the beginning, but you only have it basof. So to mean lo yadata mize me'atchala bigla lo lamata et ze bebet sefer, ורק ידעת את זה בסוף, בגלל הוא תינוק שנשבע. Okay? Good time. Fine. Next. It says over here like this. Yetziot Shabbat are going to be 2, which become 4. So says the Gemara Tzadana Hata, we learned in the Mishnah over there, Yetziot Shabbat Shtayim, right? He says Yetziot Shabbat are going to be 2, right? Shehena Arba, which are going to be 4, Bifnim. These are all talking about from Reshut Rabim to Bifnim to Reshut Yachid. Meaning there's going to be 2 achnasot and 2 otzaot. Right? The 2 achnasot is going to be that the ani came and he took from the Reshut Yachid and he put it in the Reshut Rabim. Remember, the ani is outside of the house. So he's taking his hands inside of the house and taking something out, the bread out. So that is what? That is called from Reshut Yachid to Reshut Rabim. So that's achnasa number 1. And then you have Hoshit Balabait et Yado Lachutz. Right? V'natal chefetz v'chniso fnim. Another one is that the ani had a basket, let's say. So I come and I take my hands outside, I take the basket and I bring it into my house. So that's the second achnasa. The first achnasa was from Reshut Yachid to Reshut Rabim. Second achnasa, Reshut Rabim to Reshut Yachid. Okay? Now again, that's called achnasa me'at Torah. Now there's another 2 achnasot, which are going to be midrabanan. Right? Which is going to be Pashat ani yado lebayit. ונטל בעל הבית את החפץ בתוכו, or she בעל הבית את ידו בחוץ, ואז אני took שם משהו, right, לביתו. זאת אומרת ככה, in order for you to be חייב מדאורייתא, you always need akira והנחה. Akira והנחה means you need the removing of one and the putting of the other. So for example, I've got, right, this here. So what happens is that when I pick it up in my house, and now I'm going to take it outside, I just did akira. I uprooted it from where it was originally. When I put it in the hand of the ani, that's called hanacha. I placed it in his hands. So I'm going to be chayav mina Torah because I did akira v'hanacha. What happens if I only did half? I'll give you the example. I come and I picked it up and I took it out here. What did I just do? Akira. What happens if the ani takes it from my hand? I didn't place it anywhere. The ani comes and he takes it from my hand. What is that? He did the hanacha. So now it's half of a melacha. Half of a melacha, right? That's the melacha. The melacha is that it's in the Rabbi. Right? The melacha is only half. Since the melacha is only half, that's only midrabanan. Exactly. It's midrabanan. It's not doraita. Because doraita tatzrich akira v'hanacha. Oto davar, the same thing, the opposite way around. What happens if the ani was on the outside? Right? And he did the akira and he put it on the inside. And then I came and I put something inside. So I only did a hanacha. I didn't do akira. So for the same thing, it's called achnasa. Again, I only did half of the melacha. So there are 2 of them which are going to be doraita and 2 which are going to be derabanan. Ushtaim. Now we're talking about yetziot now. Because beforehand we were talking about achnasot. Achnasot means bringing in. Now we're talking about taking out. So there's going to be 2 which are doraita, which are going to become 4, right? What are the 2 which are going to be doraita? So he says, right, number 1, aleph, right, which is mina Torah. The balabai took the chefetz v'yado, and he took it to the Reshut Rabim and he placed it there, right, which is hotza'ah, not achnasa. Number 2, hoshita ani et yado lifnim, v'natal chefetz v'otzi lachutz. The ani comes and he takes his hand into my property, and he picks it up and takes it out. He did the full melacha. He did the akira, and he did the hanacha when he took it outside of my property. Those are the 2 which are doraita, because again, you have both of them. There's another 2 which are going to be derabanan, if the balabai took his hand outside, and then the ani took from him, or hoshita ani adolifnim, the ani took his hand inside, and then the balabai took the chefetz from him. Okay, and or the balabai, put something in his hand, and then the ani took it out. Okay, so that's only going to be midrabanan. So now says the Gemara like this. So basically we have 2 which are 4. Okay, remember, there's always going to be the rabbanans, and there's going to be doraitas. Okay? So now he starts like this. Maishna hacha detana shtaim shen arba vetulo. Why is it that we started with 2, which are 4, and we didn't say anything? Umaishna hatam, and why is it over there that we learned shtaim shen arba mibifnim ushtaim shen arba mibachutz? Meaning, in our Mishnah, it just says 2, which are 4. So, the Mishnah over there, we said 2 which are 4 on the inside, and 2 which are 4 on the outside. Meaning the question is, why are we over there specifying much more? That there's also inside and also outside. Why do we have to do that? Everyone understood the question? One more time. Our Mishnah, what does it say? 2 which are 4, Kaddish. Why over there do we say Shtaim shem arba mibifnim, v'shtaim shem arba mibachutz? So let's see what it says. He says like this. He says, right, as follows. Hatam, right, this is a very simple answer actually. He says, Hatam, the Ikar Shabbatu. It's the Ikar of the Shabbat. And therefore, Tani Avot v'Toladot. There we're going to teach all the Avot Melachot and also the Toladot. And therefore, since we taught the Avot, which was Hotza'ah, and the Toladot, which is going to be Achnasah, that's why we learned Shtaim Shenavah Bifnim, Shtaim Shenavah Mibachutz. Hacha de Lav Ikar Shabbati. Okay, bediuk. So he says here, which is not Ikar Shabbatu, Avot Tani v'Toladot Lo Tani. He says here, it's not the main. It's not the. Yeah, he says like this. He says, right over here, right. It's not the main place. So since it's not going to be the main place of where we're learning Hilchot Shabbat, we just said 2, which are 4. That's it. Okay. Says the Gemara, Avot, my nihu. What exactly are the Avot? Yetziot. He says Yitziot, Tarten Havya. He says that Yitziot are only going to be 2 of them. So how do we say that they're going to become 4? V'chi and if you're going to tell me, Mehen lechiyuv, umehen lepatur, sometimes there's going to be chayav, korban, and sometimes you're going to be patur from a korban. V'adunya de maron negaim tani. We learned that to be like maron negaim. Mahatam, just like over there, kulu lechiyuva, it's going to be chiyuv. So to here, we're talking about kulu lechiyuva. Everything's going to be a chiyuv. Yeah, everyone understood the question. Ela Rav Papa, but rather Rav Papa says, Hatam over there, the Ikar Shabbat, which is the Ikar Shabbat, Tane Chiyuv P'ture. We're going to teach the Chiyuv and the P'tur. Hacha over here, Chiyuv Tane, Up'ture Lo Tane. We didn't learn the P'ture, which means like this. Over there, it's Hilchot Shabbat. So in Hilchot Shabbat, I'm going to go in Hilchot Shabbat, Biyun. I'm going to go into it deeply, right? So therefore, I'm going to bring all the different cases, even the cases which are going to be in the Rabbanan. Here in Masechet Shevuot, I'm only going to teach you the cases which are Doraita. How many cases which are going to be Doraita? 4. 2, which become 4. Meaning like this. Let's zoom out again. One more time. In Hilchot Shabbat, you remember I went and I told you that there's 2 which become 4 in Hotza'ah and 2 which become 4 in Hachnasa. But when we mention the 2 which become 4, always 2 of them was the Rabbanan. Because they were always either the Akira without the Nacha or Nacha without the Akira. So therefore, that's why we said there's 2 which become 4 on the outside and 2 which become 4 on the inside. Right? But there were also the Rabbanans. Here, we're not talking about the Ikar of Masechet Shabbat. Here was just Derech Agav. Derech Agav, Vetit Masechet Shabbat. So since we only brought down the Derech Agav Masechet Shabbat, how many are Doraita? When I come and I said 2 which become 4, right? Only 2 are Doraita. The 4 are not. The other 2 are not. And the same thing on the outside and also the inside. Yes, but 2 of them are the Rabbanan. 2 are Doraita and 2 which are the Rabbanan. So 2 which become 4. Aval yesh gam mibifnim v'gam mibachutz. On the inside and also on the outside. Over there, I'm going to teach you all of them. Why? It's Hilchot Shabbat. So in Hilchot Shabbat, I have to teach you the Raita, I have to teach you the Rabbanan. Here, it's not Hilchot Shabbat. So when it says over here, Shtaim Shem Arba, I only took all the Doraitas. All the Doraitas, there's only 4 in total. There's only 4 in total. Over there, I brought you 2 which become 4 on the inside, 2 which become 4 on the outside. Because 2 are going to be Doraita and 2 Drabanan. And 2 are going to be Doraita and 2 Drabanan. But if I'm going to ask you, but how many are Doraitas? 4. So Shtaim Shem Arba. That's it. Chiyuv emaynihu. What is a chiyuv? Yitziot. Right? So he says Yitziot, Tarte Udavian. It's only going to be 2. So says the Gemara, no, you're right. Shtaim d'otza, shtaim d'achnasa. It's 2 which is otza and 2 which is achnasa. So that's what I just explained to you. Right? At the end of the day, we're only bringing down the doraitas. But in the doraitas, there's only 4 in total. So you have 2 of Yitziot and 2 of achnasot. So ask the Gemara, v'ha Yitziot tani. Says 1 second, but in the Mishnah it said Yitziot Shabbat. So if it says Yitziot Shabbat, it's mashma only Yitziot, not achnasot. So what are you telling me now that it's going to be 2 which become 4? So Ravashi says Tana achnasa nami hotza kaleh. Do you know that we also called achnasa like hotza? So זאת אומרת, אפילו אם אתה עושה את ההכנסה, זה גם נקרא הוצאה. זאת אומרת, בלשוננו, אנחנו קוראים לזה הוצאה, אפילו אם זה הכנסה. אוקיי? ממאי? How do we know this? So, hey עמוד ב', yeah, 5b. So he says, מדיצנן, from the Mishnah says, המוציא מרשות לרשות חייב. If you're going to take from one reshut to another reshut, you're going to be chayav. Milo askinan, we're not dealing with the kame'ai la'ayule. You're even bringing something in. The kakar le'otza, and it's still called hotza. So says the Gemara, v'dilma kamapik m'reshut yachid reshut rabim. Maybe you're taking out from the reshut yachid to reshut rabim. So says the Gemara, if so, nitzi amotzi m'reshut yachid reshut rabim. Just teach it. You're taking out from reshut yachid to reshut rabim. What is reshut reshut? Ta'afinu reshut rabim reshut yachid, and it's still called hotza. Meaning, even though I'm taking out from the Reshut Rabim to the Reshut Yachid, that's still called Hotzah, even though that's Achnasa. When I bring something from the public domain to my house, what is that called? What is that called? Which melacha? Chazak Baruch. Achnasa. What did the Mishnah call it? Hotzah. That's why. That's the proof. That's the proof. The proof is the fact that we're still saying that you're taking from the Reshut Rabim to the Reshut Yachid, and we're calling it a Hotza'ah, even though really Be'emet, it's Achnasa. It's really Achnasa. You're bringing it into your property. But that's what we're calling it. The time of my so why do we call it that way? Why is it that Be'emet we're calling Achnasa Hotza'ah? So he says, anytime that you do an Akira, that's already called Hotza'ah. Meaning the fact that you came and you took it out of its original place, doesn't matter whether you're bringing it into the house or taking it out of the house. That's called hotza'ah, because you're being motsioto min komo. You're taking it out from its place. So therefore, since you're taking it out from its place, that's called hotza'ah. You're bringing it into my house, yeah, but I took it out from its place. So therefore, that's why it's called hotza'ah. Means even though I'm doing an action of hachnasa, but that's called hotza'ah. Okay, so he comes and he says, Amar Ravina, we have a proof from the Mishnah. He says, Matzin Nami Daika. Diktari was learned Yitziot Shabbat Shtaim Shem Ba, right, which are bifnim. Ushtaim Shem Ba, Mibachutz. They come and faresh Achnasa, right? And then all of a sudden we come and we start right away with Achnasa. So he says Shema Mina. So therefore you see from here that Achnasa is also called Hotzah. Meaning when I come and I tell you that you're going to have 2 which are 4 on the inside, 2 which are 4 on the outside, and then what do? I'm going to be Mefaresh, right? All the Ki'ilu, all the different types of the Hotzahot. For 1 second. But he says, because he said, one more time. Yetziot Shabbat. Shtaim Shem Arba mibifnim, ushtaim Shem Arba mibachutz. Shtaim Shem Arba is really achnasa. It's not Yetziot, but Yetziot Shabbat is going on the entire thing. So that means from our Mishnah, we're already bringing a proof that since it gave you the title, and the title says Yetziot Shabbat, taking out of Shabbat, 2 which are 4 on the inside, and 2 which are 4 on the outside, you know that 2 which are 4, one of those groups is Hachnasa. And one of those groups is Yitziyah, Hotza'ah. But I gave you the title Yitziot Shabbat. And then I continue. So therefore, Shema Mina, we learn from here that in the Mishnah, you could already deduce that it's going to be Hotza'ah, which means that Hachnasa is also called Hotza'ah. Until here we're clear? Rava comes and he says, Reshuyot Ktani. Reshuyot Shabbat, Shtaim. Really, be'emet, when it says yitziot, yitziot is referring to, right, reshuyot. Meaning, how many reshuyot are there? There's only two reshuyot. It's going to be, the two, which is going to be reshut yachid and reshut rabim. So because of that, that's why we said that it was going to be yitziot Shabbat shtayim, which means the two reshuyot, which become arba. Okay? Says the Gemara, marot negayim shnayim shehen arba. Right? Again, one more time. Right? He says the marot negaim are going to be two, which become four. Yeah? So he says like this. Tanan hatam, we learned over there, right? Marot negaim shnayim shehen arba. Marot negaim are going to be two, which become four. Baheret azah kesheleg. Right? So he says like this. The Mishnah is going to come and he's going to tell you. Baheret is azah kesheleg. Meaning, what is baheret? Baheret is one of the types of tzarats. So one of the types of tzarat is going to be azah kasheleg. It's going to be az. It's going to be very, very white, right? Like sheleg. Shniala, a second one, right? Which is tafella, which they learn from sapachat, is a little bit lighter. Kesid hechal, just like seed, the seed of the hechal, the line that you put in the hechal. Se'et is like semelavan. It's like white wool. Okay? I don't know if you ever saw wool. Wool is not really 100% white. Right, even when it's more yellowish, right? It's not 100% white. So he says shniala is like the krum beitza, right? Is like the krum of a beitza. Here's the krum pnimi, which is otef the chelmon and chelbon, not the klipa chitzonit, because that's called klipa and not the krum. Okay, so he comes and he says, yeah. So basically, there's going to be 4 different colors on marot negaim. Okay, everyone's here. Fine. So Amar Rabbi Chanina, says Rabbi Chanina, Man Tana Marot Negaim. Who is the Tana that says Marot Negaim? He says it's not like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, but says if it's like Rabbi Akiva, Kevin Amar, since he says Zolom Yan Mizo, Zolom Yan Mizo, which means he taught them according to their darga to come together. So therefore the seder comes out that it's going to be sheleg, tzemer, seed, and krum. And only the maresh nivdal mechavro b'darga achat is mitztaref imo. In ken, if so, right? Tiharta sid hechal militzaref. Right? So what does that mean? It comes out that you're mitaher the mar'eh, which looks like the seed of the hechal, to be mitzaref, to be mitameh, like a shiur grease, with anything else. Yeah? Which means like this. According to Rabbi Akiva, right, you have a certain seder. And when you have a certain seder, the Gemara is going to say that according to Rabbi Akiva, you could actually be mitzaref, right, the different colors to a shiur, right? So the Chachamim, they argue, they say, right, they're not arguing on the seder, right? They just hold that en mashmeut ilchatit lekach to do the mareh mitzaref im chavero, meaning it has nothing to do with combining. You don't combine them. But according to Rabbi Akiva, you combine them. So for example, I'm going to give you an example. What happens right now if you have a little bit of, you need a shiur of a kagris, right? So what happens right now, right? That's what it says here. Tziruf shel zu lemala mizu v'tziruf shel tolada lavia gorem shesida echal lo yuchal litzaref im shum mareh. Because the Gemara is going to explain right away, right? So one more time. You have 4 mar'ot. Can I be mitzaref otam biyachad or not? Let's say I have a little bit of baheret and a little bit of set. So, b'derech klal, according to Rabbi Akiva, you could, right? But it's going to come out that the only one that you can't is the seed. And now we're going to explain why. Behadi man letzarfa. Who are you going to combine the seed? Litzarfa behadi baheret. If you want to come and you want to do it with the baheret, right? Because it's the toladav of the baheret. So he says you can't. Sheika se'et dadifa binebez. Se'et is higher up. Look in the list. Look in the chart. Everyone sees the chart in the Gemara. A tavla. יש לך את הטבלה שמה. כן, הטבלה הזאתי. Right? הטבלה הזאתי, it's different dyes of white. Baheret is mamash sheleg. Se'et is like tzemen. Seed is like that. Right? And then you have the krum beitza. So each one is a different color. Now the thing is though, seed is a tolada of baheret. So now he says like this. If I'm going to tell you that the tolada should be mitztaref with the av, which is the top one, so the seed is a tolada of baheret, you can't be mitzaref otam biachad. You know why I can't combine them? because in between the seed and the baheret, you have the se'et, which is a higher power. So therefore, that's what he says. Litzarfe bada baheret, I cannot. Why? Ika se'et dadifa mineh. Litzarfe be'ad se'et. So combine it to the se'et. Lav tolada didehu. It's not the same tolada. It's not the same. Meaning the tolada and the av. It's not the same one. Right? The seed comes from baheret. It doesn't come from se'et. So says the Gemara, fine. But what about the number 4 then? One more time. Everyone, zoom out, please. I want you guys to look outside and just pay attention. You have 4. Here we're talking about combining. I need a certain measurement to become tameh. Now what happens is that's like the shoot of the grease. Now what happens is I could combine things. But what can I combine? So usually you combine something with the one above it. Or this one with the one below it. Right? Because it's always basically above and below. But within the same thing, I'm not jumping. You can't skip. Right? I don't remember which one of the games that you can't skip an extra thing. You could only, it's either one up or one back. You can't jump over 2. Because in the first list, we went and we mentioned the Av and the Tolada. In this list, now we're going in the deepness of the color, shades of the color. Yeah. So that's what he says. Baheret is a zakashelik. Shniala is kesida echal. Se'et is semer lavan. Shniala is krum beitza. Right? But even though we just brought you down these 4, but it's not in the order of brightness, because it's just like the tolada. So he comes down and he says like this. He says, right, like this. One more time. I have baheret. Baheret is number 1. What's number 2? Se'et. What's number 3? Seed. What's number 4? Kum beitza. So if you actually paid attention, what we did was we brought down the 2 avot and then the 2 toladot. Baheret and se'et, and then seed and krum beitza. Seed goes with the top one, and the krum beitza goes with the bottom one, with the se'et and semer. You see the lines? The lines bringing them. So you have the line connecting baheret and the seed is on the left side, and the line connecting the se'et and the krum beitza on the right side. Exactly. 1 and 3 and 2, 4. So now he comes and he says this. The number 3, I can't combine it with anything. He says, why not? He says, I cannot combine it with the Av, which is number 1, because Se'et is right above it. So it's like making a pasek. It's like making a stop that I can't go above that. I can't jump. But I cannot also combine it to the Se'et because it's not a Tolada Shalom. Yeah, clear? Very simple. So now what's the Gemara going to ask? Common sense. What's common sense? I cannot do number 4 either. Why? I can't combine number seed mafrid benehem, and I cannot combine krum beitza with a seed. The shtem toledot shonot. So that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, right? He says, right? Ihachi krum beitza nami. Who are you going to combine it to? It's Sarfar, but if I'm going to combine it to the set, you have seed above it. It's Sarfar, but the seed, if I'm going to put it with a seed, lav bar minehu. It's not part of it. It's 2 completely different toladot.